Hi everybody, so today I'm going to walk you guys through making the Lowland Bum Bag without bindings, just lining and your mains. So I sandwiched the two pieces together to the zipper. Make sure that your right sides are together and make sure that your exterior is the one that's on the bottom. Then put your zipper face down and then your lining on top of that. You can sew this in two parts if you'd like, but I do it in one because I'm lazy. And then I just give this a good top stitch. You can go ahead and use your iron to flatten it if you like, but giving it a good top stitch is just enough. And then I make sure everything looks good. And then I'm going to go ahead and half all of the pieces of my pattern. This just helps make sure that you're centering everything correctly, nothing is out of alignment, and that everything will match up when the time is ready. And I use the smallest little nick in my scissors. You don't want to do anything crazy big. You want to keep it in your seam allowance, so smaller than 1/4 of an inch of a cut. And then I'm going to go ahead and line up the gusset. You're going to want to use that curved edge and line it up to the middle point of your bottom of the front and then pin all the way around. This pattern doesn't have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so make sure that you use that for all of the pieces that it calls for. All of your pieces should line up correctly if you did so. And then I'm going to line up the lining to that same exact piece at the same exact time. Like I said, you could do this in two parts and baste the exterior first and then do the lining, but I sew it all together because chaos is my middle name. So yeah, I give that a quick sew. Again, continue using seam allowance, and then make sure your zipper does go in, because if you leave it out and then you nip, then you got to put the zipper back on, unstitch, all that good stuff. I just go ahead and double check my seams, make sure everything is where it's supposed to be, nothing is out of place. And I give it a good look, make sure it looks good, and we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and halvesy this zipper. I'm not going to put a cut in the half. I'm going to just mark it with a pen. You don't want to halvesy this or cut it because, well, it will unravel, and that's not good. And then for this curved edge of the top little piece, I recommend doing this in two parts. You can first pin the exterior to the right side of the zipper and then sew and then flip it and do the other side, which technically I did, but I didn't. I did it all together. Again, chaos. Hello. Welcome to the club. Another way, if you are having trouble with the curve, I recommend sewing on your slowest setting on your sewing machine. Also, you can start in the middle and then work your way out and then flip it and just, again, middle out. That's also another really helpful trick when sewing on a curve. And then, like I said, you want to make sure you do keep your 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you need a zipper foot, get a zipper foot. No shame in the game. They're really helpful to get you in that 1/4 inch seam allowance. But my sewing machine has a really small foot, so it kind of works out perfectly for me. But this, using the seam allowance is so important with bags because you want to make sure that everything pieces together correctly at the very end. And I go ahead and top stitch. I do like to top stitch all my zippers. These are the only pieces that you do top stitch. Just make sure that your zipper opens really smoothly, it doesn't get caught, all that good stuff. And then I admire my work, make sure everything looks good, everything is nice and smooth. And we're going to move on to the next step, which is the webbing. So I like to go ahead and just put a little lighter to the edges. This just helps with fraying. I use seatbelt webbing, so it frays no matter what I do. But to prevent this, again, I just double fold over my edges, and then I'm going to go ahead and backstitch a few times, and then sew straight, and then I just backstitch all the way back like 2 or 3 times. This just reinforces your stitches and make sure that everything is really smooth. Anywhere that there is webbing, I do go over like 2 or 3 times in a row just to make sure everything is really sturdy, nothing's going to come undone, just because it is a bag. And what a pain in the ass it would be if your bag came apart while you were shopping with Target. That would be horrible. But the rest of these directions are pretty much the exact same as the pattern calls for. The only difference that I would do, other than what I did in this video, is I would wait to add the buckles and the hardware until the very end when your bag is assembled. Trust me, something's going to be the wrong way, like it was for this pattern, and you'll have to take it apart, like I did. So, just advice from future me to past me and to you. But yeah, all of these are the same directions as the pattern calls for, so nothing is really different from there. And I do go ahead and just top stitch on my seams just to make sure everything's nice and flat and secure. And then I go ahead and pin them to the little spot they go in. Double check everything. You can go ahead and base these on. It'll just make it a little easier, but again, I didn't. But next, I'm going to go ahead and line up that exterior back piece to the main bag. And this is essentially just starting to close it off. If any of your seam allowances were off, things weren't cut right, it's going to be really apparent here, and you're going to get a little bit of gathering. The gathering, if you're going to get it, I recommend putting them in those bottom corners. It's going to be the less obvious. It's going to look a little bit neater everywhere else. And honestly, like, we'll notice it because we sewed it, but the people wearing it, someone looking at it, isn't going to notice. And I do this in two parts just because I do want to make sure that this part I do not create holes or anything like that. So I do sew that exterior to the main first, and then I will go ahead and double check my work by flipping the bag right side out, pushing on my seams, make sure everything looks really good, make sure everything's really secure, nothing's having any issues. And then I'm going to flip it right back inside out. I'm going to fold everything back onto itself, and you're essentially going to put that lining piece right sides with the rest of the bag, so that when it's closed, you only see the opposite side of both of your fabrics. I do leave about a 1 to 2 inch gap at the bottom of the bag. This is going to help you with birthing it at the end. Yes, I said birthing. We're not birthing a baby, we're birthing a bag. But you just want to go around, make sure that you are still in your 1/4 inch seam allowance, backstitch on those ends, and then start pulling on the bag to get it to come through the hole. Just find something that feels a little loose and then just start pulling on that, but nothing too hard. You don't want to rip any of your seams because that would be really sad. But then I flip it out. I double check it again, make sure everything looks good. And then what I'm going to do is close up that little hole. You just want to grab those 2 lining pieces, the gusset and that back lining, and you're just going to go ahead and just stitch that little baby hole closed, and you won't even know it's there. And you've just finished your little Lowland bum bag. Hope you guys loved it. Thanks.